welcome back. This is Angie Romero, and today we're going to have a very fun interview. I can't wait to get started. So as many of you know, as humans, we have a tendency to learn a lot from stories. Even the past cultures, when there wasn't language, when there wasn't reading, when there wasn't schools, things were taught through the method of stories. And the stories that we're being taught today are through movies. So I relate to a lot of things in life as spiritual moments or stories, but when we really dig deep into some of the best stories that we've seen, they have a spiritual meaning behind it, even if it's not obvious. And sometimes it's very obvious, maybe like the ones we're going to talk about today. So today with me, I want to introduce you to Mia Huffman. She is born and raised from Cleveland, Ohio, is all about creativity. She's danced ballet from the ages of 4 through 10 and has always had a love for nature and horseback riding. So growing up, she focused on her pre-med studies since one of her strengths was always the science. But eventually she missed the arts and she began studying acting and film. Over the years, she's done a lot of background acting for major films. But in 2013, her interest in metaphysics grew, especially after a few dreams showing of ascension, which we'll probably talk about. It was then that she felt that film could be a great vehicle to explore the truth about humankind's potential. With all that said and done, Mia considers herself a metaphysical filmmaker. She loves early mornings listening to soulful music, which I probably butchered, writing nature, science fiction, and fantasy movies. As a single mom of 2 adult sons, Joshua and Aaron, she is a one-person production on the projects that she is currently working on. To be honest, thank you so much for being with me today, Mia. This is so
exciting. Thank you.
I absolutely
here.
No, and I absolutely love it. So when you and I connected and you told me about how you were a spiritual filmmaker, I was thrilled because I've always seen, and it's what I just talked about. I've always seen a correlation in anything in life. And I make it a spiritual lesson to the point that my daughter would always turn around and say, you have to stop making everything in life a coaching moment. But I can't help it. But then there's movies. Yeah. And then there's some movies that you can find it, even if it's not in your face. And yet there's some movies that a lot of people will go and watch. And there's like a whole bunch of trilogies we can talk about. But there's so many that they're very subtle. And sometimes people think it's just creativity and somebody's imagination. And when you tell them, no, this and this and this represents this, they look at you like,
Exactly.
So tell us a little bit more about how you became, like you say that you became interested in the metaphysics because of some dreams of awakening. Can you share some of that, or ascension was it?
It was that. It was some of the dreams that dealt with going from one level to the next. It was about breaking out the wings. That's pretty much what happened in both of my dreams, really. And actually, along with that, you can probably mix in there the solfeggio music because it deals with frequencies. And so when you start, it's sort of, for me, it was like an open doorway. And then I started studying the chakras, and then I went into the crystals, and then it just tumbled uphill, not downhill, uphill, ascension. So just up the mountain, ascending. And then I said, you know what? I said, because the previous, I did like I know I said 2013, that same year, I did like a little short film about fallen angels. They were just a group of fallen angels that were planning, plotting and planning. And, I like the idea of the story about angels too. And so it sort of melded itself together and evolved together. And I became what I am now, and I'm still evolving. Still, you never stop growing. If the creator is eternal, then what you're going to learn is eternal. Your growth will always be there. You will never come to an end point. So right now I am the metaphysical filmmaker, and that's where I am right now.
No, and I absolutely love it. And it's funny because I catch myself like everybody else. Like I'm very flat out and I'm very honest with a lot of the things. And I'll catch myself saying, No, I want to watch something that's like 3D, you know,
Yeah.
whatever kind of movie I would get me there. But then there are times that I'll just be blank and I'm like, okay, maybe I can sit down and watch some Netflix or whatever. And I'll skim through the channels, and the most watched, the top recommended, the major hits, they're literally almost all of them about killing, affairs, drugs. I mean, what we
You name it.
consider, yeah, what we consider entertainment kind of goes against the vibe that I want to feel. So it's like, that's where a lot of humanity is. And I'm not saying I'm better than anyone, by no means necessarily.
Right.
But I can feel the difference. There are times that I'm like, yeah, I'm going to dig in and be as 3D as possible and watch the cartel, you know, sitcom and movie and the whole thing. But there are times that it's like, I want to watch something, but I don't want to feel that energy, that heaviness that I find sometimes comes after watching things like that.
Agreed. I was looking at something online, and they talked about the various genres, what would make money. And it didn't surprise me that one of the top genres that filmmakers go into is horror. Because when you go into distribution and everything is in English, it's may not be always an emergency to translate it into that particular language, because people can sit and look and know, okay, here's this creepy guy, there's this woman, he's going after the woman, okay, horror, we get it.
Right.
So I mean, no thought there. But when it comes to like a science fiction and fantasy film, there has to be real thought behind it. Whereas horror, you know, someone's just, you know, unless you're talking about a thriller, now there is some thought behind that, because now you have to apply some levels of suspense. What would get the audience to jump?
Right.
You know, but that's what it is. And it's also action, because, you know, there's, you know, you're doing this and you're keeping the audience, you know, they're like this, okay, what's going to happen next? Okay, the car is going to do that and blah, 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 blah. But in my thinking, what brings me to fantasy is that, like I said before, it takes thought, it takes creativity. And when it comes to that level of thinking, you are receiving information from, not from you, it's actually coming from somewhere else. The Akashic records, creator, angels, you know, your divine team, whoever that you are receiving this from. So that's what I believe is that there's much more involved, and it takes sometimes a longer time to put it together, because I might be sitting here, okay, I have this so far, and then maybe the line of communication is not quite there. Maybe I'm too busy, so I have to wait. Sometimes I wait on inspiration.
Okay.
And then once I get it, I'm like this at the computer. I'm just going at it, and I'll go at it for a while, and then I take a break. Right. So, and you know, a movie like The Matrix with, you know, Sophia Stewart actually wrote The Matrix. That's where the source material comes from, is from her work. You know, she's a visionary. She's very metaphysical also. You could probably, you know, talk to her and have her on the show, Sophia Stewart. Okay. But she's very metaphysical in her approach, and you can see it with Neo. Now that is the hero's, not the hero, I guess you could say hero's journey, but the fool's journey, because he's coming from someone innocent. Then all of a sudden he kind of goes and sees the Oracle. Well, that's evidently the, who would she be as an archetype? The High Priestess. Okay. He goes, and there's a situation that happens. Now, you know, we all know about the red pill, blue pill. Right. And so of course, he takes the red pill and he wakes up. And it's a kind of, it's sort of a tower moment right there, because now there's a paradigm shift. Now there's a different perspective, because the former world, the former paradigm has to fall away in order for this true awakened reality to sink in for him.
Right.
And you saw him go through that. You saw him through all 3 trilogies.
Right.
And then finally, he of course he comes through the magician stage. There, of course, there's double-like stages in there, and then you have that which was outside of him, those who were attacking them that had double-like energy.
Right.
And in the third matrix, you saw the world card. Now you saw the completion.
Oh wow.
Of the whole fool's journey, right?
Okay.
But I definitely see that fool card going right in there, and then there's a number of shifts that you do see with Neo.
Right. And I've heard different people, different directors, different metaphysical. We can find so many different things. We can relate to so many different things. Precisely maybe because of how the writer wrote things in there, and also because of our own perception and understanding. For example, somebody that might be listening to this might not have seen any of that. I hadn't seen any of the correlation to the tarot cards, the major arcana, like we're talking about. And yet for me, it was more of okay, I don't believe we're being used as batteries like that. I don't believe in personally.
Right.
But I believe that we're asleep and maybe our consciousness and something is somewhere else. And this that we consider reality really isn't.
Yeah, symbolism.
Right. And for me, it's more like that, because when one thing about me is that I try to translate and say things like in a very basic manner so people can understand. The way I usually say is that although we don't realize it and we don't feel it, this is like a video game. And the truth to us is
simulation.
right. But we talk to somebody about this is a holographic universe, and everybody looks at you like, what the hell does that mean? Because it's hard.
You're weird,
Right. And it's hard to wrap it around your head when you're learning about it in your beginning. Once you understand it, it's like a no-brainer. But hearing it for the first time, it's like, what do you mean this world doesn't exist? I just hit myself against the wall and it hurts. Like, what are you talking about? But it's kind of that metaphysical piece that there is so much knowledge. And what you said at the beginning, we're never going to learn everything that there is to learn. And for me, it's more of we're always in an ascension path. We're always in evolution. We're always in growing. It's like you don't tell the kindergartner the material that you tell the senior, because it's just no understanding. So everybody goes through their own grade and everybody goes through their own levels. And I think with movies and stories, just in general, it's just that movies for me nowadays are like the high glory tech graphics. I'm dying to see the new Avatar that's coming out.
Oh, yes.
There are so many
I'm
things.
excited.
Yeah, there's so many things. It's like we get to learn from stories at such a different level that we don't realize we're being taught different things. And then going back to like what you said, the horror stories and stuff like that. Me personally, I've never liked horror stories, but what do I want to put my entertainment on? Something that causes fear or something that's going to give me happiness, maybe a comedy.
Right.
So it's kind of feeling out that vibration. I mean, there's nothing wrong with those genres and there's nothing wrong with people who want to see them, obviously.
Right.
But it's a personal decision.
It's a personal decision to want to learn.
Right.
And when I watch this horror film, am I learning something, or is maybe that person's personal makeup maybe more, how they say people who have more adrenaline,
right?
More adrenaline driven, and maybe that would suit them. But for someone, see, I'm an Aquarius. I'm weird and strange and off and over into the other direction somewhere anyway. So,
okay.
So whatever, but I like since I was young, I've always liked the fantasy, the unicorns, I like the visual also, because with the visual and the stories, there seems to be something that rings true. Were there once unicorns in the world? Is there something going on where maybe there's something otherworldly? I was always otherworldly. Maybe that's the best way to put it. Otherworldly. And when I watch Willow or I watch Dungeons and Dragons. There was a cartoon back in the 80s. It was something that I kind of wanted to grab at.
Okay.
And I didn't understand why I was into that. It was something I wanted to hold on to. Even Star Wars. I saw that when I was 5 years old, 1977. So I'm giving away my age. So there was something, it was okay, like a knowing that there's something more to this life. There's something more to us than what we've been told. Oh, and yeah. Lo and behold, you start to get into the metaphysics, and it's like, okay, that's what it is. And then you get into the other creatures and the beings, and you start learning about the spiritual world and all the different angels and the different types, and who knows whatever else is out there in the other realms that might be an inspiration for someone writing a story.
Right.
So,
right.
And to me, it seems more, and it's going to sound weird, but it sounds more real than just the everyday mundaneness of just telling us just a regular everyday, and it just looks like nothing's going on. I don't see a unicorn running down the street. I don't see an angel. I don't see a UFO. Okay, I'm bored.
Right. Right. No, and I think it's like that for all of us that are, what is the saying, that we all drank the Kool-Aid or something like that?
Oh, yes. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So again, once you're aware of it, you start into it. I don't see unicorns, and for me, it's dragons. I don't see them walking down the street, but trust me, I have felt them. And it's like a knowing. And yeah, it's just like a knowing. It's just, how do I say it? It's kind of like okay, so I'll tell my experience with dragons, which I haven't actually openly shared on video, but people with me and around me that we talk about.
Okay, let's hear.
So, well, I'll give the example of angels first. So I connected to the angels a very long time ago because a friend of mine did angel therapy. She's an angelologist, and I can't say it. Anyways, up to that moment, to me, angels were like the little precious moment statues. Like they were cutie things. It's not that I believed in them, but it's not that I didn't either. It was just like it had never clicked. With my friend, doing sessions with her and the whole thing, I actually opened up to that angelic world, and I could feel it. And I was like, ooh, okay. So fast forward, the same thing happened to me with dragons. Something totally out of the blue. I was not expecting it. I was actually at a Qigong convention, and we had just done like a whole bunch of work that morning. And then in the afternoon, I remember we were kind of doing a meditation thing. And I'm very creative, very imaginative, and very intuitive. So I'm laying in my meditation because we were actually on yoga mats on the floor. And I could feel the presence of a dragon kind of covering over me, protecting me. At the moment, I was like, okay, I'm at a Qigong thing. Probably my mind's, but whatever. I paid no attention to it, but that was the first time ever. But I felt it. I honestly felt it. But I had never heard of anybody ever talking about dragons, except in a bad sense. So I was like, okay, it was my imagination. Fast forward again a few years later, the feeling started coming back to me. So then I in tuned with my higher self, and I was like, okay, if this dragon thing is real, then let me explore it. Lo and behold, whether they have bodies or they don't have bodies in some other planet, dimension, reality, whatever we want to call it, right? Maybe just a frequency or a consciousness. What I have been taught from him is so powerful and beautiful and full of wisdom and full of, I mean, it's like there's no actual hierarchy, but I would consider them maybe in a higher frequency than even some of the angels that I have worked with.
Okay. Yeah.
And it's kind of like this, right. And it's kind of like this sense of it's not, I got you. It's, you got yourself. He's like my backup, but he's always reminding me of who I am inside and what I am inside. And it's like he's like a bodyguard that's just there for me, as in, you have this. I'm just here in case you think you don't. But it is so beautiful. And then again, going back to our topic, movies and stuff like that.
Yeah.
We talk about dragons and myths and stories as
Love
people
it.
eaters and reptilians and they're
Something to kill.
something to fear. And honestly, I have gotten nothing but the complete opposite. It's just amazing how we have been taught so many things, maybe erroneous or wrong, whether by mistake or on purpose.
Okay. Yeah. I have a saying that, you know, a lot of people fear anything that's reptilian or reptilian-like.
Right.
And I think it stems from the Bible with the, you know, with the snake and all of that. And one thing I have to remember, and someone else, this isn't my saying, but I heard this, or at least read this a number of years ago, that all snakes didn't fall.
Okay.
See, it's sort of like the concept of the angels. You have the angels, and then you have the concept of the fallen angels.
Right.
And probably what I'm sensing is a being that was that was a higher vibrational being, not a lower vibrational being.
Right.
See? And I'm also reminded of the seraphim.
Okay.
Because that is the one that is, he's called the burning one.
Right.
And he's a reptilian type.
Right.
Of being the seraphim. Because when I hear that on some level, there might be a connection. There might be a different type of angel that maybe we're unaware of, because, you know, we're aware of the different levels, the different, what is it? The choirs of angels, I think they call them.
Right.
But there might be more.
Yeah.
There might be different other types. You see, the creator is much more than just what doctrine and dogma has been taught to us.
Yeah. And I remember a long time ago, I don't even remember when, but it was a long time ago, a little daughter of a good friend of mine, for some reason, we were talking like UFOs and aliens, and she got really scared. And I looked at her and I was like, honey, why are you scared? She's like, because on all the movies they're bad. And I go, but they're movies, number one. Second, do you believe there's aliens or not? And she's like, I don't know. And I go, look, the only thing I'm telling you is just like humans. They're good humans, and then they're humans that make mistakes, and then they're humans that aren't so good. I mean, there could be a whole bunch of different things that we have no idea. But and they are very, I think they're Christian. They're very in their faith. So I looked at her and I was like, do you really think God, with all his immense power and creativity and universe and force, is only going to create humans on Earth when he has a whole galaxy to play with? She completely turned around and she looked at me and she goes, okay, you're right. I'm not scared of them anymore. And I'm like, okay, cool. I'm like, so if a UFO lands, and then my sarcasm and personality came out, I go, if a UFO lands and an alien comes out, I'm not telling you to go rush to it. Like, wait, you know, we don't
like,
really
hey,
know. Right. It's like, we don't really know, but you're causing yourself fear out of things that we don't know. And she totally got it.
There's a lot of things within organized religion, I'll put it that way, because there's many.
Right.
Within organized religion, we have been taught so many things to fear, different kinds of people to fear, and especially that one, and what is in, I can't remember, Leviticus or Exodus, or about certain kinds of people with special abilities, suffer not of which to live. And really what those people were, you know, how we define it today are people with special abilities, people with healing capabilities that we would call a witch today.
Right.
But according to the 1611 King James Bible, King James, there were some things that he had gone through, and there's a reason why he doesn't like certain people. So he just gathered them up and he sticks it in the scripture. Oh, well, these are the unworthiables, if that's a word.
Okay.
Yeah. So there are certain elements that were added into, or kind of tweaked, especially when dealing with goddesses, the idea of divine feminine. If you notice that everything from the top, anything that feminine,
Oh yeah,
was cut down. And when all of that was cut down, that's when an imbalance
right.
came through. So
Right. No, I completely agree. And I think that's what happened. So like you nailed it perfectly. Anything that didn't fit their scheme of things was considered witchcraft. But healing somebody, being in tune with your own body, for crying out loud, being in tune with knowing what to do. The shamans are in tune with the earth and they know how to connect to Mother Earth, to connect to this, how to heal through different natural abilities. Damn it, that's not witchcraft, that's being in tune. And by us, honestly, for so many centuries or whatever it is, being cut off from that intuition side. I think that's why the whole rebellion and this and that. And then there's some people that take the divine feminine into a, well, you hate men. No, the point of it is to bring balance. Like you said, we have to respect the divine feminine as we would respect the divine masculine, but in a balance, because if we look at it from a physical point, our left brain and our right brain each represent one of the energies. So if we're unbalanced in our own brain, okay, that's where all these diseases and screwed up mentalities and values, and we screw up our own biological system because we're unbalanced.
Right. But you know what, let me say something about that. You know, we're going into the age of Aquarius, or we're already there.
Right.
And so what's happening is there's a lot of wisdom coming through, the spirit of wisdom, who even in the Bible was considered feminine. She's coming through. So as you are now, okay, now let's hit the obvious here. Now, back when Wonder Woman came out and it was the whole Me Too movement and all of that, there was something that was already in process in the unseen realms that now became manifest.
Right.
Partly in film, partly in what was going on in real life, is the rise of divine feminine and the rebalancing. So when guys see this, they see this as the strong toxic femininity and feminism and, you know, the toxic form.
Right.
And they're not seeing it as a, you know, how you watch a stereo and how you start to see this, what you're saying is this: there's a flux between masculine and feminine. It's not going to go smoothly,
right? Because
the masculine has been ruling for a certain time. So when he sees this balance trying to come about, oh, well, you're being toxic in this. And in some instances it is, because it is a response. The feminine energy responds to what's given to her. So if there's something toxic about this feminine response, maybe she's responding to the toxic initiator. Yeah. On some level. But there's a flux going about. It's not going to go about smoothly. And you see what's going on in the news concerning abortion and all of this, and you know, trying to, you know, stop women from moving forward, you know, to make the choices that they need to make, you know, especially if they need to make certain choices. Right. So,
yeah, no, and there's so much, but then, I mean, I don't know, we can probably talk about this in so many different ways, because so many different things that happen. But then if we relate it back to the movies, sometimes we'll just see a movie, and again, it'll flat out say something like that. Like, oh yes, you exit the movie, like with Wonder Woman, women feel empowered, some men admire it, some others are just kind of, so there's a balance in everything. And I think while that shift, like you said, that flux is actually happening, it might take a little while. Yeah. But I think with conversations like this, and especially with movies that will address things like this, more and more people are going to be able to start seeing it from a different point of view and be like, okay, hold on. It wasn't just a character, because that's a lot of things. So like, I love all the Marvel comic book heroes and all of those things. Right. And yes, it's adventure and it's action. And I mean, I love all of that. But it's kind of when you really take a step back and think, wow, he really created this entire universe of characters and they all mesh so wonderful. And I do want us to talk about the Doctor Strange because it's like, although all of them have them, there is not a single movie in my mind that is as clear on the metaphysical as that one.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Oh my gosh. That was a unique movie. I mean, if you want to say metaphysical, that one is it. Especially that first movie. Because I really believe Doctor Strange symbolizes most individuals before they discover self. They're living a mundane life, living in a way that they want to live. He was living in the material world. He was very, how could I put it? King of Pentacles, but sort of in the reverse, because he was very, arrogant and flashy about it.
Right.
But because he was this King of Pentacles in reverse, the Tower moment came because life had a plan.
Right.
And so he had this, I don't know, spoiler alert for anyone who didn't see the first one.
Well, it's the first one that's been out for a while, so they
right.
haven't seen it yet. I'm sure they've gotten enough spoiler alerts by now.
Okay, but he has this accident and it changes his, he was a surgeon, so his hands were messed up and oh no, he's still going through this Tower moment. But then he eventually, long story short, goes into Asia. I forgot what country it was.
Yeah, I don't remember.
But and he runs into what's her name? It's been a while since I've watched it, but he runs into a spiritual leader, put it that way. And it's sort of like a monastery or something where they learn to develop their abilities. And so now he's wanting to learn, but see, he had to be humbled in his life. There is that saying in the ancient text, the Bible, that you cannot put fresh wine into old wine skins. You have to throw out the old skin in order to accept this fresh new wine. And that's still a kind of Tower moment. The old paradigm, the old way of being has to be torn down, right, in order to accept a new mindset. So he had to be humbled because he's very arrogant before. I mean, he was Tower.
Right. Yeah.
Yes, he was. I mean, if the two cards came out, it would be King of Pentacles and the Tower. And so that was his path of learning. Now he is, while he's in a monastery, he kind of has this hanged man thing going. He's really thinking about it. Then he becomes, as he's learning, now after a while, as he's learning, he's become the hermit. Okay. Because he's stuck there. He's going through books. Right. There's that, then he's learning to astral travel. Right. Then he kind of comes out and there's sort of a resurrection of sorts. And then he kind of, and sometimes there's a mix of cards. Sometimes there is the magician that sort of comes later as he gets into exploring his capabilities. But yeah. Right. I think it's an excellent movie, an excellent metaphysical movie that talks about really about us, what we're capable of, but we have to tear down certain mindsets and certain things that we have been taught in doctrine and dogma in order to accept this level of ascension. Right. And I think one of the amazing parts to it is obviously because I know of all these things and I've studied them. As I saw them in the movie, I was like, oh, that's this, oh, that's that. But when I can't remember her name either. I know we're talking about the bald. Yeah. I can't remember her name. Yeah. When he's talking to her and for the first time she pushes him out of his astral body. Yeah. That's a hell of an experience. Let's not kid ourselves. Oh yeah. That's a hell of an experience. But to me, I see it as in he needed the proof
in order to believe. And that's what happens to all of us, you know.
Yeah.
We are so, or we were, because I already have the knowing that the kids that are being born and growing up lately they're much more in tune and awake in consciousness, and their veil is not as thick, or if they even brought it with them. But for us, the majority of us, I'm not going to say my age, but I'm close to you. But many of us came in, you know, unbeknownst, we were conditioned into a world. We were taught about all these things. So for me, the representation of, she had to show him the proof for him to believe it. Then his curiosity kicked in, which is what happens to a lot of us. So once we get a taste of it, we're like, okay, what is this? And then you start,
what is, I want more, show me.
Right. And then you start going, and everybody has a different path. And I tell everybody, I know a lot about a lot, not from an ego point of view, but because I'm curious. So when I find something, I'm the biggest nerd there is. Like, I'll dive into it and I'll research it and I'll read it and I'll take a certificate on it and I learn it and then I teach it and then I do workshops about it, because I'm so curious and like, oh my God, this is possible. And look at this. And what you said, we all have the natural ability to become so much more than we think we are. I mean, we're running these little bodies, beautiful bodies of ours, like if nothing. We have no idea the potential we have from the physical level to an energetic level. I mean, the whole thing of telepathy and moving with your mind. I mean, it sounds science fiction, but it's
agreed.
But it's not. And there are very few people in the world that have been public about it. If more people that experience it would be public about it, then it starts changing again, that paradigm, and to showing other people, yeah, it's not science fiction. I can do it. I mean, I have honestly astral traveled since I was a child. Did I leave it behind for certain years? Of course, because I got into the 3D real life, quote unquote, world.
And there's nothing wrong with it.
And there's nothing wrong with it, because it's the path that I needed to travel. But it's the whole thing. And then when they showed, so from my understanding of it, I love all those movies, but I'm not, you know, I don't have the timeline straight in my head, because I always get lost. Whose is who and where. But from what I understand of the you know, Marvel universe, Doctor Strange first movie, but then his character shows up in other Marvel movies like Avengers and stuff like that. He's always shown as the magician by then.
Yeah.
Look
at the cloak he's wearing. What color is it?
Burgundy, right?
Like a burgundy, a reddish color. And on the magician card, it's a red cloak.
That's true. I have not noticed that. Yeah. And I think that's what's interesting. And going back to something we talked about before, like even yourself, you just said, you know, sometimes you'll have to step away from a project to let it come in again. And I think artists, it's that whole saying of they got the muse, or they got in tuned, or they went with the flow. That's freaking intuition. And where the intuition comes from, it could be from your own higher self or from something greater than us. So that's a whole, and that's with artists, that's with writers, that's with everybody that's creative. They connect to quote unquote, oh, the muse. Well, it came from somewhere. Everything comes from. That's
the title that's given to it, the muse.
Right.
So I mean, even on my YouTube channel, I kind of switched it to musings. You know, it's sort of an overall cover of, well, it's from the divine, it's from higher self, and you know, or just like you said, your higher self. And you know, I go into some of that on my channel. It's called Macabre Not Musings, a little plug there.
Oh no, but it's gonna be down in the show notes, don't worry.
Thanks. But you know, I discuss a lot of that, and sometimes I, you know, to admit, you know, sometimes I step back and I think about it, and I think about the video, and it's like, was I a little weird, or did I express that a little too passionately? And because they're you know, going back to organized religion, like we said before, because a lot of us came up in 3D world, or came up on a path that that's supposed to show us where to go spiritually, but they only take us so far, and then it's like, got a cap over it.
Right.
And that's what they do. Because so now you have people in the pews, 80 years old, and we don't know anything more.
Right.
Other than, okay, okay, well, let me give an example. There was a discussion, I wouldn't say discussion, but I made a comment in one group. And one lady mentioned about, well, she was telling a new person, new spiritually, something about the 9 gifts of the Holy Spirit.
Okay.
And I simply just made a statement. I wasn't going to go into a spiel about it, And I said, oh, yeah, there's the 9 gifts, but there's more.
Mm-hmm.
There's more abilities that we have. That's what I was saying. Well, and then she kind of came back, and I don't think she meant it in a negative way, but but when I started hearing responses like, well, as a minister, I don't want to teach the newbies this or that. So could you please show me, and what you believe, can you please show me where that is in the Bible? And please, can you quote the scripture on that?
Right.
And I kind of took it, because I've had experiences like that before. I took it as, so you're trying to see if I'm okay.
Right. Right.
How strange am I? Or is that your question to see if I'm demon possessed, or their way of finding out what because everything is not going to be in that book.
Yeah.
There's information outside. Also, people have to learn to put 2 and 2 together. Well, see, the thing is, if they're like a pastor or minister or something like that, and they come to me and they say, well, where are the other gifts? You tell me, chances are they may already know, may not know. They're just trying to see where you are, if you're okay in here, if you're okay in spirit, when they kind of come across that way.
Right.
But I will come back to them and say, well, you have the qualifications, don't you know?
Right.
I mean, Christ walked on water.
Right.
What is that? What do you call it? They'll say miracles.
Yeah.
But what do you call it?
Yeah.
There's something else. There's other gifts. They say that Christ knew what was in the heart of man. Well, what do you call that?
Right.
Telepathy.
Right.
And see, and I think that's part of the problem, is how something is worded. We don't use the paranormal terms.
Right.
I think that's the term. So, and I think it would scare people. I think if we say, oh, when he went about and he telepathied this person over here, now, that's when people are going to start backing up. Right. So when I start talking about certain abilities, and I start talking about having the ability to call fire down from heaven.
Right, right.
There was a guy in Asia, I think he's been dead for a few years now, but you may know who I'm talking about, because there was footage circulating about him using using electricity to heal people. And you'll see people jerk around and he's healing people. Okay. And he could start fires through his hands.
Oh, okay.
So the question is, because we've been told that you have to have this Holy Spirit,
right? And
anyone, and there's the 9 gifts, but okay, so what was
what was his
guy over in Asia? Okay, he's starting fires with his hands. What was that?
Right, but that's the thing. If it doesn't fit their 9, then it's unpure, it's ungodly, demonic. It has to fit their scheme of things. When I don't remember when, but when I looked into I've never read the Bible. I'll say that straight out. Never physically sat there and read it from page 1 to last page. I am a metaphysical reverend, though. And the reason I'm a metaphysical reverend is because I believe in the metaphysical. It's because I believe that we have an open mind, and I have a responsibility. I'm not saying everybody does. I am a reverend because I have a responsibility to share the knowledge, whether I am not going to impose my knowledge on other people. I am an open book. If I know it, I share it. If I don't know it, and you and I have talked about it before, I am the first one to raise my hand and say, wow, that's amazing. Like the whole comparing the tarot to the movies, I had never done that. And I absolutely love the tarot since I'm a teenager. But the point of being a minister to other people is share your knowledge. Don't judge them. Don't judge other things that fit outside of your belief system. Which again, going back to Dr. Strange, when he lost his abilities to work with his hands, that what was giving him his bread and butter in this world. That is the only thing he knew how to do. We sometimes fit into that. This is the only thing we know. And there is no way in hell we're going to want to do something different because this is what we're good at. And we're so stubborn. We don't see that maybe it's not only that life has something different for us, but that we can help so many other people, which is what I'm doing now. Do I have all this knowledge for me and do I help myself? Yeah, it has changed my life. Am I going to enforce it on other people? No.
Right.
But they come and I can see that through one video, through 20 minutes that maybe somebody caught us, through anything I say to somebody or in a blog or in whatever, if it could help them fulfill something within them to teach them or help them be aware that they are so much more than they are even capable of knowing, I've done my part and I'm happy. I don't even need to know them.
Right.
And that's the difference. I think many organized things have forgotten.
Oh yeah.
It's their rules, their book, their temple, their way of being, and everybody else who doesn't believe in them is wrong.
But I also think that this individual was thinking that maybe, you know how you don't feed a steak to a child? I guess she was assuming that I was trying to feed a steak to a child. And I wasn't. I was just sort of, you know, it's just a statement. And I wasn't even going to come back and visit it, you know. But now going back to that statement about what this person is, you know, it was something about, well, I don't want to, you know, give something, all of this to this, you know, this new person, which is understandable because you feed a child the milk that it's supposed to have until it has the ability to eat something more solid. And but here's the rub. And a lot of people say that, and that's where a lot of people stay, the newbie stage. Now here you have this person over here, like I have this friend. It's been a while since I've spoken to her, but I've had this friend who's had the gift of bilocation.
Nice.
Where does she fit? Who does she talk to?
Yeah.
And so when that happens, you know, you have these people out here that are just sort of floating about, wondering about themselves, being told there's something wrong with this gift.
Right.
And they're not being attended to. And so they leave. You know, something's wrong with me because these people have not caught up to my level to tell me, okay, this is what's going on.
Yeah.
You know, and then you have people right now that can walk through walls. Okay, well, what is that?
Yeah.
And can you instruct people, you know, like a Dr. Strange situation where there's a learning capacity, a willingness. Is there another level that someone can go to, or do they just have to come out of organized religion, period, and just be? Right. And that's what's happening, is that the creme de la creme of the spirit, people who have these gifts and abilities to expand consciousness, to move beyond the boundaries, they're not there. Yeah. Because they're being scared out. They're being told something's wrong with them. Again, I've kind of been through that in some ways. Oh yeah. But the friend who had this gift of bilocation, okay, so which of the gifts are denying, you know, the 9 gifts, which, what is it? How do you term it?
Right. And that's the thing. Why the number 9? Why couldn't they be open to say, well, we know of 9, but they're strict to the 9. And that's the thing. Then you try to classify, like, for example, your friend, we try to classify her into one of these 9 things and try to mold her in. No, it's kind of, but then let me ask you something. So from your metaphysical, filmmaker, creative, beautiful mind, how, because, okay, going back to Dr. Strange, 80% of the people maybe that have watched that movie think it's just a movie. It's all fantasy.
Mhm.
We actually get people to be curious enough to say that actually could be possible, that actually could be real. Because with the
Mhm.
Matrix, it happened the same thing. A lot of the people talk about the blue pill and the red pill, but many of
Uh-huh.
them just talk about it as a saying, not because they actually believe.
Mhm.
What happens if I do take that other pill? Like they'll just, so from a filmmaker's point of view, how do you talk about these things without people keeping classifying them as a sci-fi or as a story? Or is that even possible?
Ha 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 ha. That's a good question.
But we are about to end up, so I needed to
Well,
throw you something just to make you think.
okay. Well, here's the thing is that while those genres, the best genres to put metaphysical topics in are like fantasy and sci-fi with sometimes with a bit of action, sometimes.
Okay.
The reason why, especially if you have a mind like Sophia Stewart or me, or you know, people who genuinely, an artist that that has that gift, to have that eye, to have that eye right here that's open.
Right.
It's placed in there so that people can decrease judgment. They're more relaxed inward to be able to accept or to at least question, have an open mind to what you're seeing.
Okay.
Because like you said, with the Matrix, while it was sci-fi, fantasy, she calls it a metaphysical movie.
I
Okay.
didn't know that. Okay.
It certainly, while it was entertainment at the time, it really opened up a lot of eyes.
Right.
Are we truly living in a simulation?
Right.
Is someone outside of this controlling this whole thing? Right. And when I see something, am I seeing something the way it should be seen? I'm thinking about the woman in the red dress, that scene.
Okay.
Where they're in that simulation and she kind of walks by. And, I hope I'm answering the question.
No, go ahead.
Okay.
It's a hard question.
If someone sees it as just entertainment, that's fine.
Uh-huh.
But there's going to be that number there. And I think it's going to be larger. I think in this coming time, the age of Aquarius, there's going to be a growing number of people that are going to see beyond the entertainment.
Right.
That's what I think. And, there are times where I feel that it's almost like the creator, the divine, sometimes gives me information and then it stops. And then I might watch something, I might read something that's like, oh, and I might incorporate something that I've learned into that story the next time that I write. And I'll tell myself, I'm glad I didn't put it like this, so I put it like this.
Right.
Because there's an ongoing revelation to this one particular story that I'm working on, which I don't know. I don't even know what format I'm going to put it in. I think it's going to be like novellas.
Okay.
Or something like that, where it's short stories, but it all comes together in one big story.
Right.
So, but I just think, the film industry is in a flux. It was in a flux. I think it started kind of going awry before COVID. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Before
before that.
I have to be careful because then you have the last 2 to 3 years where, what's happening.
Right.
Okay. So it provided new ways for people to not just tell stories, but in the way to tell stories. And then, okay, let me put it like this. I believe creator has given a time frame for certain entities, put it like that. Certain entities, especially in the creative industry. And he's going to raise up a new group of people. So you're seeing, see, right now, it's just like with the masculine and the feminine, there's a flux.
Right.
There's a flux right now because there's going to be the rise of the independent. And where you see the entertainment industry dwell mostly, that's going to end, because people are going to start to see other talents, other gifts in other regions.
Right.
Okay, because there are certain people who are highly talented that couldn't go to that place out there.
Right.
I'm going to keep it nameless,
right,
but who could not go to that entity. And I think it's been so successful because it's been in its own way monopolized. There's the concept of, the idea of thought forms. And what is that one that's beyond thought forms? Like tulpas, a thought that you put together in egregore. I think that's what it is.
Okay, I'm not sure.
Like an entity that's formed through thoughts.
Okay.
And people feed this entity, and with that entertainment industry out there, it's become this living egregore because so many people feed to it.
Okay.
So now what's happening is the less energy that it receives, the more it starves, and the more the creator kind of brings these up over here who have the actual talent and the vision and the creativity, who've been sort of blocked out of that industry because of whatever egregore, energy that they're feeding. So that's what I think is happening. It's a shift. Who tells the story and how the story is told is what's going to change.
Okay. And it makes sense because we're doing kind of a full circle of what we talked about. It's like, putting it in other words, is the more the people choose to see this kind of film and vibration, the more it's going to be done, or the less it's going to be done, because it's all very well cycled, that we don't notice it if we're unaware of it. But if we're aware of those things, it's obvious things are going to shift. Let's just even talk from a marketing perspective. The less people go buy a certain product, the more the manufacturer is going to either break down or say, well, I can't keep producing this product because it's not selling. So what do I do? That's when it gives other, let's say, people who build products an opportunity to come out with theirs, because it's all, and we can see that not only we're talking about the film because we're talking with you, but we can see that in so many different industries. And that is the flux that the world is seeing right now. Without getting specific into this industry or that industry or that industry, we're seeing it all over the world.
Oh, yeah.
And it's just a matter of, from where are you seeing it? Are you seeing it as the human you with the logical mind, or are you stepping back and seeing it from an observer point of view, like you do in meditation, and see everything a little bit more abstract and say, okay, it absolutely sucks, for example, that the gas is so freaking expensive because it's ridiculous. But it's like, when you step back, you're like, well, it sucks, but I see the change that's coming. So it's always taking a step back and a step in. And I think, for example, with the movies, with the shifting people, I'm not going to say it's a hit or miss, but I think it's divine timing, in the sense that there is a moment that even the smallest, and it could even be a short film, the smallest little thing will have such a major impact that even a high-end, top-of-the-line movie might not have the same impact. So it's like, from a creative point of view, from being an artist, you look at it like, my baby has grown and took a life of its own that was not expected. And I think that's how spirituality works. We try to be logical about it, but we really don't know where this is going, or the shifts, or what one little, maybe even an ad commercial that somebody comes up with that was divinely planned in front of the people who are divinely to see. Who knows?
And there's that saying, never despise small beginnings. That mustard seed there can grow into
Right.
a big, powerful tree.
Yeah. No.
And you know what I was saying before, there is that saying that which wolf do you feed?
Uh-huh.
Do you feed the one that is not beneficial, or do you feed the one that you know would be beneficial?
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, honey, we're running out of time. Thank you so
Okay.
much. It has
I
definitely been
enjoyed.
interesting. Very interesting. Let me ask you, so what are you working on before we cut off? So I'm going to put all your contact information below, but what are
Okay.
you working on now? What are your future plans? What can we expect to see in your plans?
Well, I am actually working on, and I'm going to have to get back to this. I kind of put off working on transformation. It was going to be like a, you know, like a few minutes long, like a 5-episode, 1 season, I guess you could say web series called Transformation, dealing with ascension. And it's coming from like a scientific perspective that one half is reluctant because this particular character goes metaphysical.
Okay.
There's these changes happening. So it's sort of like exploring the genetic side of it. What's happening? Okay, well, here's this person over there that this individual was studying, and now, okay, this gift just developed. So that's
Right.
what I put off for now. But I am working on a book, like I've explained like earlier, the novellas. And so the first one, I can't really state when it will be out because, you know, like you said, divine timing. But I am hoping to have something really kind of more solid by the end of this year.
Nice.
Something more solid. I also have a YouTube channel, and with that, I mean, I can be inspired by, you know, any time to really do something like I did the future.
Okay.
What is it? Persecution of the gifted. And that was just sort of almost a spur of the moment thing.
Okay.
So that's when I, you know, and, you know, the creator, he gives me a number of different things. It's just a matter of not being so scattered.
Right.
So I've actually started narrowing it down to just that novella. And it has to do, I've called it for now, well, the one word that I give you is ascension. That's going to be part of the title.
Very nice.
So I think this is one where I think a lot of people would resonate with, because you know you deals with going from normal everyday life to all of a sudden now you're out here and you have these wings, and that's what the wings symbolize, ascension, going from one level to the next.
Okay. Very nice. Well, that definitely sounds exciting. I can't wait for it to come out, and you send me a copy and let me know where I can.
Yes.
Very exciting. Well, again, thank you so much for joining us today. And I mean, it's, for me, it's just fun. It's fun connecting with people like you, with people that help us see different things, maybe in the everyday life. And that's what this show is about. It's just opening up and sharing, and even talking about movies, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah. No, awesome. So thank you again.
Thank you.
All right, honey. And to everybody else, thank you, and stay tuned for the next show. Bye-bye.
All right, bye-bye.